I just would like to please note the retirement of Karen Neubauer there. A special thank you to Karen for all her service in the district. She's been in the district for over 26 years, obviously for a majority of that time as the high school secretary. So thank you for her for that. That is correct. This would be for next year.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6 is the public comment portion of the meeting. Public comments will be accepted at this time. Each statement should be limited to 5 minutes in duration. Participants shall direct all comments to the board, not to staff or other participants. The board welcomes public comment, but does not respond to citizens' concerns at meetings. At the citizen's request, and the board's direction, the superintendent or designee will respond in a timely manner. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Right now, we have at least one on the list here. Does anyone else wish to speak tonight? Okay. Hearing no others, Ms. Karen Smith, want to come up?
Hi, my name is Karen Smith. I live at 8712 Grant Street in Montague. And my request to you is, as the board, that you take the time to walk through the MAC, RRO, NBC, the high school, and the bus garage. All of y'all. Look at the ceilings, look at the floors, look at the walls, and make sure that everything is in ship shape, not in disrepair, and that you're being good stewards of the buildings that we have before we add another one to the mix.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Okay. Item 7, reports.
All right, first on our report list is the principal meaningful minute. Any principals that would like to start today? Mr. Hanson.
Hello. As we get closer to the SAT conference, or the SAT test here coming up in April, we've kicked off our SAT March Madness, so there's lots of students working hard doing extra prep work on Khan Academy along with their classwork to get ready for the SAT competition. Recently, the MHS band scored all ones at Band Festival. That was fantastic. The MHSA choir followed that up a couple weeks later with all ones at their choir festival. I had a chance, combination with the choir festival and the FFA, I had a chance to kind of travel with both throughout part of the week last week. FFA had a great showing at the FFA State Convention at MSU with numerous Wildcats bringing home hardware in various leadership competitions, proficiency awards, craft contests, and FFA degrees. Some highlights of that were 8th grader Abby Tallquist bringing a state championship in public speaking. And I followed up quickly with our state championship in green hand conduct of meetings, which was earned by Annie Jensen, Addison Pranger, Bowser, Amanda Cedarquist, Grace Porsche, Greta Hawk, Jordan Metcalf, and Shayla Johnson. And also Amanda Johnson was elected as secretary of the FFA State Officer Board for the next season, the 2022-2023 season. Very impressive stuff there. Kind of on a personal note, my job is done with both the FFA and the choir. Things that impressed me most wasn't all the awards and the accolades and stuff the kids were picking up, but it was their, they did well under all the bright skies and bright lights and big stages and all that stuff. But I was more impressed with how well they conducted themselves as we traveled through other schools, hotels, restaurants, campus venues. The random fire drill that popped up at the hotel one night, not fire drill, it was fire alarm at the hotel. Our kids did very well with all that stuff. They were polite, professional, engaged. They represented us well. I was just as impressed with that as I was with all the awards. So that was pretty cool. Declan also had a great weekend. They had 5 kids moving on from their state convention onto the Declan Internationals. Danya Ibarra and Lizette Newsman move on for gold certification for outstanding school-based enterprise with all the work with the school store. Sophia Perro moves on to internationals with a gold award for the chapter awards program. And then Claire Meacham and Morgan Metcalf have the top role play in the state, and they move on to internationals with that. Oh, and by the way, for our wrestling team, hey, we picked up a women's first state title in 140 4th in the state and set an all-time record for career wins at Montague High School. Kristen Winkelblatt finished 5th in the state in wrestling, and Savannah Winkelblatt 6th. It's been a busy month here at the high school. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson, as you're walking up here, I will share Mr. Perot was unable to make it today, but he did put together a little piece for me to share. Last year, some NBC students took part in the Build to Fly program from the Experimental Aircraft Association. Volunteers from Port City RCers came to NBC twice per week to build a remote control airplane with our students. All the students learned to fly the remote control plane, built a section of the plane, and then a chance to fly it at Ottinger Airport here in Montague in June. Annie Jensen wrote an article on the program, and the EAA posted the article to their page. So I'll have a link for that on Friday for that article as well. They are going to repeat that program this year at NBC as they have another model airplane on the way. This group will start meeting after spring break. They also celebrated Pi Day today. The staff wore Pi Day shirts, and the students could purchase raffle tickets for a chance to pie a teacher in the face for the honoring of Pi Day 3.14. For $20, you could buy a golden ticket that would guarantee you to be able to throw a pie at a teacher. Officer Rick Johnson from the Montague Police Department also came in and took pies in the face as part of that $20 work as well. Kids could buy tickets for the opportunity for their tickets to be drawn for pie throwing contests. The students at NBC raised $800 with this fundraiser that will be donated to the Plunkett family. Julie Plunkett, our counselor, and her daughter as she is battling back from cancer. And that is it from the middle school. Sorry, Mr. Henderson.
Okay. Good evening. I just want to echo kind of something that Mr. Hanson said about our students. We're starting to get more subs in the building, and I just hear from substitute teachers, how well and respectful our students are. Not perfect, I would not say that, but compared to other districts, it's just they recognize student behavior at our district. And we've heard that for the years, and so it's nice to have teachers say that again now that they're coming back in the building. Also, if you do decide to take a tour in our building, I would encourage you to come early in the morning. I mentioned our student news, and it really started from a 1-minute blip. We try to say the Pledge of Allegiance, to now they're making announcements. They're doing sports, weather. They talk about lost and found. We've had many items pulled out of our lost and found. So it's really quite a production that Mr. Hedrick and Mr. Bradley have put together, and it's expanded. It's quite exciting. The kids really enjoy watching it, so do the staff. Fridays, they have 5 burning questions with different staff, and Mr. Johnson's appeared out here. That's just very fun to watch the kids grow and learn that trade. Parent-teacher conference was a success. It's always fun to see the parents come in. It gives me an opportunity to talk to them, and we had a great turnout. During that time, since we did not have our carnival this year, PTO-sponsored carnival, they were selling merchandise. They put together a package where they had hats and socks. And I was going to model, but I thought, but we do have some socks and things left. And they also put together our PTO book fair where parents went through the cat lab and picked out books, and it was very successful. 4th grade is doing our Rube Goldberg. They're starting their science projects, energy and motion. So they'll start their Rube Goldberg. It's always a favorite with 4th grade. I liken it to mousetrap, but they make them much bigger than mousetrap, where they push one thing and then everything falls down and goes through this whole scenario. So they get to take some household items and build that, and they really enjoy that. And then finally, we have 5 students that will be exhibiting their art from Mrs. Densoff's class at the Muskegon Art Museum, starting the end of March through May 1st. So I encourage you maybe to go down and see that. It's students throughout the county. They work with the ISD, and we have 5 students that have art down there. Thank you.
Thank you. There.
We are halfway through March, and we're into our altar celebration at the MAC. So our kids just finished Dr. Seuss last week. They made green eggs and ham, and each teacher then wrote language experience stories with our students. So they had the experience of making them in their classrooms, trying to recall what happened exactly, and then they turn that into text that because they wrote it, they can then read it and are able to illustrate and kind of have a cool book to take home or
into Laura Numeroff, and she is famous for, if you give a mouse a muffin, a mouse a cookie, goose a muffin, pig a pancake, we'll be making pancakes. Compliments and assistance from Mr. Gorman and the food department. So the kids are going to experience making pancakes in their classroom, putting them on the griddle, and then they'll write stories thereafter. So the kids are having a really good time. Parent-teacher conference was a great success at the MAC. We had 99% participation. I believe we had only 7 parents in the whole building that were unable to make it, and teachers followed up with phone calls to those parents. So that was really nice to have that kind of community support. And then lastly, we are entering Unstep window. So our teachers in 3, 4, 5 and our special ed staff Wednesday for early release will be doing a integrity guide read and a required state training for just compliance for administering the Unstep. And then as soon as we get back from spring break, all of those grade levels will be assessing. And as you know, it is a very long assessment. They give us some windows for time, and I will say in all the years I've done it, we've never really met the time. They usually say it's a 2-hour test. For some of our friends, it takes many more hours than that. So we try and build in little breaks and make it as painless as we can. We know that the intent is to show what we've learned, and we try and really just celebrate their successes during that time.
Thank you.
Superintendent comments.
All right. So as you can see, a couple new hires as far as Dawn Bechtel with the NBC for a volleyball coach for our middle school volleyball program, along with Robin Dunn for our JV softball coach here at the high school. There's also additional Sebastian Archer for JV baseball in those new hires as well. Second on the list, MASB board member recognition. The Michigan Association of School Boards is pleased to acknowledge the accomplishment of board members here in the district for their achievement in 2021. MASB will be holding a statewide recognition via Zoom on Wednesday, April 27, 2022 at 7 p.m. For these award winners. Here in the district, we have a Certified Board Member Award to Brent Rath and another Certified Board Member Award to Dr. Amanda Unger. So thank you for your participation in that. Other superintendent comments. I would like to gain some insight. I have received correspondence from Mary Seamer and Greenridge Realty. Benjamin Deal with Alan Edwin Holmes is wondering if he could have a conversation with the district possibly about looking at additional land connected to the Pauline Street projects that are taking place. He has currently just purchased 3 of the 5 remaining lots on Pauline Street, and they're looking to build there. They are keeping in mind in all the district requirements in their process, but if you could please touch base with me if you think that that is worth a future conversation, or if we just say not at this time. Legislative update. If you noted in the Friday updates, there are a lot of different legislative things starting to come about. The House Education Committee met. They voted out a couple different things, but House Bill 4810 and 11, eliminating the required to put MME scores on student transcripts and SAT essays would be some of the most notable, or the most notable. Senate Education Committee met. They took testimony on Senate Bill 726, which is amending the Retirement Act to allow retirees to substitute teach sooner. That is obviously with a substitute shortage very important to us here in the district. They also voted out 5701, which addresses regulatory issues dealing with school districts as far as security locking devices on the doors, which we have with the boot. Senate Appropriations Committee voted Senate Bill 618, reducing the interest for district rates and the school loan revolving fund. So changing some of that to make it the interest rate a better deal for the districts. Back to the substitute. In that substitute version, it's another version of Senate Bill 726, is expected to be voted out of committee next week. Among those changes, the UAAL would no longer apply to substitute teachers. So that is a big deal for districts, as in all district employees there is this UAAL cost, which is for districts, it's kind of money in, money out, but it is a work for our business office and any substitute teachers that were current employees of the districts or within the retirement system. That would no longer be the case, so be saving district monies is there as well, and having an opportunity to have more subs within the building. DHHS is expected to rescind the order requiring schools to put the COVID cases on their website. And rescinding the order, they will be releasing an additional guidance for schools. That did not come out today, but it is expected this week. Spring sports did, as you heard, winter sports came to a conclusion as today began the spring season at the high school. Came to a conclusion. Congratulations to all our participants during the winter season. As you heard, just special congratulations to our wrestlers, but specifically state champion Emma Pendel. We will have future conversations about that down the road, along with our many great participants at the state conventions, both for the DECA and the FFA state events that took place last week. We had a strong showing in both those areas. And that is it for superintendent comments.
All right, thank you. Item 8 is new business. Consideration to approve MASB CBA classes for Brent Rapp. Motion made by Tom, support by Scott. Any discussion?
So Brent did take 8 different classes through MASB. He took classes governing through policy, school finance, school law, curriculum and instruction, community relations, labor relations, navigating the legislative process, and data-informed decision-making. And this would be the approval for the reimbursement of those dollars.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Yes. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B is consideration for approving one of us to represent Montague at the MAISD annual budget review.
Cindy Francis has done it in the past, with Amanda Unger being the alternate who had to be there last year.
I move to approve Cindy to represent the district and Amanda's the alternate. You don't want to do it?
No, I said I don't mind doing
Okay.
it. Yeah, that's fine.
I support.
And I'm like, fine to say it now. Yeah. Okay. Any other? Okay. So we need a sec.
I did.
Yeah, we got that. So okay, all those in favor?
Yeah.
Yes. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Cindy, that annual budget review presentation is on April 26th. You saw that. We will get that information to MASD.
Item C is consideration to approve school of choice resolution for 2022-23 school year. Motion made by Tom, support by Blair. Discussion.
So this is the annual authorization of the school choice resolution here at Montague Area Public Schools for the 2022-23 school year. As a district, and like in years past, we do have the number of openings for the district as being unlimited, as we are looking to gain students, not see a decline in students that we have previously.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Yes. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item D is board policy concerning compensation discussion, board member compensation.
So it has came to light through Troon Law Firm that they are making the recommendation that, not recommendation, but they are saying that the Internal Revenue Code, the IRC, defines an employee at, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
My apologies. So the Internal Revenue Code, IRC, defines as an employee as an officer, employee, or elected official of the United States, a state, or any political subdivision therefore. The IRS considers a board member to be a public officer because the position's tenure, duration, pay, and duties are fixed by law and are subject to a degree of control in terms of when and how obligations are fulfilled. Because a public officer is included in the IRC employee definition, a board member is a school employee. For federal income tax purposes, consequently, board member compensation is subject to employment taxes and must be reported on Form W-2. The IRS has clarified that a board member is still considered an employee regardless of only receiving a per diem allowance for attendance at board meetings. This article, the federal taxation under the IRC and IRS guidance, tax law definitions are purposely broad and intentional, inclusive to allow for maximum income tax collection. All board members should be treated as school employees for federal tax purposes by withholding applicable taxes from board member compensation and reporting the compensation on a W-2 form. So with this is a new change. Districts have not really made decisions on this yet. Some districts previously had volunteers and did not pay within that position. And noting in your packet there, Board Policy 01441.1, board members shall receive not more than $30 per attending regular meetings as compensation for the services. You currently are receiving $25 per meeting within that. This recommendation from Troon Law Firm is that you become employees of the district if we continue this practice. So within that, you would then need to be, we'd have to run through a fingerprinting process that would work through the district. Currently, fingerprints are between $65 and $70. That $30 would then have to have retirement, FICA, all the dollars taken out of that. That would
Are we going to owe money?
in the grand scheme of things, not necessarily, but there would be some initial costs, but it is not a substantial amount. I will say that some districts such as Holton, Muskegon Public, North Muskegon, and others are in the same discussion revenue right now around creating it as a volunteer position, although some are like the ISD, have created them as employees and W-2 them. Fruitport is investigating these same steps as right now, and the others are still finding their way on this. So I guess my discussion is to you, do you see this position as continuing down the road to change into employees of the district, or do you see it as more of a volunteer position moving forward?
Well, can I ask a question first?
You certainly may.
So, in regards, I understand completely with what you're saying, but in regards to the information in our packet and the checks that are written monthly to specific individuals, are they required to follow the same standards then?
So as far as our ledger is
Right,
the dollars that
there's
we're putting,
individuals that are in there, are they
So
required
it would depend. So if they reach that certain threshold where they would need a 1099, we would do that. There's obviously dollar amounts that wouldn't be reached within that. So yes, that would be if there is substantial amounts or dollars to that in that process. This is more along the language side of things, I believe, as being a public.
And it seems like a few years ago we had this discussion too, and for whatever reason we didn't do it, but I think at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we were almost all in agreement with maybe one or two select board members that are no longer on the board that we don't need to get paid. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I don't need to get paid. You're giving me athletic passes, that's all. I don't need those, but I don't need to get paid to be here.
This is new though, correct? Or was this?
Especially if it's gonna cost the district more money to do a paper trail, to give me $20 for being here for a meeting. It ain't worth it.
Throwing popcorn.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm okay with, I'd always thought I'd go through life without being fingerprinted, but
Oh, maybe you should.
that was my plan.
This is your bucket list moment.
I don't want.
Do you guys care down there?
We'll get some additional input from these districts as they're moving forward as well, but from what I'm hearing, the volunteer status would be more beneficial to the district, and if that's okay, and we can always change that as time moves on as well, if we desire. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
we're not voting on that, there's no.
No, there's no vote on that, no.
Okay, so next item is special ed millage discussion.
So we did have the ISD and
Wait,
MAS.
We need a motion.
Thank
to
you.
Discuss. Thank you. Motion made by Blair, support by Scott, was it? I don't know, Blair. Do we? Okay.
not on the motion for discussion.
Okay.
So we had the Muskegon Area ISD in for the special education millage. I just want to continue to update with this. The proposal will increase the levy by the intermediate school district of special education millage previously approved by the electors. This would be of the district's boundaries, so it is not just Muskegon County, it is the district's boundary. Shall the 2.228, and this would be how it is on the voting ballot in May, shall the 2.2815 mils limitation on the annual property tax previously approved by the electors of Muskegon Area Intermediate School District, Michigan for the education of students with a disability be increased by 1.75 mils, which would be $1.75 on each $1,000 of taxable valuation for a period of 10 years, 2022 to 2031, inclusive. The estimate of the revenue the intermediate school district will collect if the millage is approved and levied in 2002 is approximately $8,737,000 from local property taxes authorized here within. So within the district here at Montague Area Public Schools, this would be a gain of $559,000 for the district. This would create the owner of a $100,000 home, so that would be $50,000 assessed value. So a $100,000 home, $50,000 assessed value, would pay $88 more each year for the next 10 years. So then a $200,000 home, $100,000 assessed would be $175, and then the $400,000 home assessed at $200,000 would pay $350 more each year for the next 10 years. We had a discussion today. Districts had a discussion around how we as districts, because this is not our millage, it is a MASD millage being put forth. We all are in agreement that the bottom line is that special education here within the county or within our district boundaries is underfunded. And what this will do is provide some sort of offset towards those dollars. Like I said before, previously $1.2 million would be the dollars that we as a district put towards special education, and the $559,000 would attribute to that we currently are taking from the general fund dollars. As a district, we are not taking a stance on pro support or against, but yet we are providing information. We will share some small informational things through school messenger and have some web page things, but we are not going out obviously as yes votes, as we cannot do that, but we will share some minimal information in that. If you have any questions as things go along, please let me know. Already there is some misconceptions around the millage moving forward, and I can get you those answers. We as a district and some of the stance of the MASD, they're more than willing for us to be a supportive of that, but they're targeting some other districts more on their yes votes than us as a whole for the district. So just thought I'd kind of give you a little game plan for the district on that moving forward.
So item F, sinking fund discussion.
So,
Yeah.
for discussions, but that's fine. It's good practice. Good practice for me. Through the community forums, as we're looking forward to the next one on a possible extracurricular bond proposal, one of the questions that really came out was our sinking fund and what currently is being done through the sinking fund, and why are there some things that we said we were going to do and why have those not been done yet. I do want to make sure that there's an understanding this is a 10-year. We have just completed we're in the completing year 3. Currently in that process, we receive around $300,000 per year for the total of $3.2 million in those dollars. Some of those things that have taken place throughout the time in the 2019-2020 school year, This is where we had our largest purchase would have been through the upgrade of the HVAC controls. We also had some door repairs both at the high school and NBC. We only spent $30,000 or $40,000 of the total. At this point in time, it was $291,570. So we were trying to carry those over into the 2020-21 school year to utilize the big project or the big replacement that we were looking for, and that was the boiler replacement. So that boiler replacement was over $500,000. We also replace a portion of the at NBC an air conditioning unit in the library that went bad. And then there was also HVAC repairs here at the high school as well. In 2020, so that of that we spent $543,000 within those dollars. As we moved into, left us a remaining of $700 after the 2021 school year. In the 2021-22 school year, there's a number of different things, but it really still went back to the boiler work. The boilers were then brought to us. We had boiler removals, boiler retainages, boiler controls. We had a generator replacement here within the district, which was a total expenditure of, this year it's been $136,000. We still have around 154. We're looking at some univent replacements as part of that process or carrying over. Schools are limited in how they can secure loans, so I want to go into, there was some conversations around early school and the windows at the early school and some of the leaks that are taking place in the early school. It is our oldest building, and some of the leaks that are taking place. In that process, the work that needs to be done is a substantial more dollars associated with that. We attacked the boilers first because we felt that we could find some energy efficiencies there, and those were purchases that we could do within a short period of time. We then looked at the possibilities of a loan at that point in time, or even at the start. We had some discussions with our facilities committee. And schools are limited on how they can secure loans in the process because it is a sinking fund. It's not part of the school debt loan fund like a bond would be. Since we would be borrowing with a bank, we would be borrowing against a voted upon tax levy. Bond counsel and legal counsel would need to be brought in, which would have an approximate $25,000 of issuance costs that would be paid from the general fund. So those legal and those costs can't be taken from the sinking fund. Like within a bond, those things can be associated with the bond and those work. This would have to be taken out of general fund, currently where we're at, and trying to compensate our employees and along the way, and just some of the unknowns around school finance previously. That along with the interest, which an interest at that point in time was 1.5% on $1 million for 5 years. That was the proposed ideas. That would have been, at that time, around $700,000 for the windows at early school and around $300,000 for the air conditioning for the second level, so for the second floor. Would be approximately $40,000 and would be paid from the sinking fund. So those interest rates can be paid from the sinking fund, but the lawyer and legalities that would take place as far as counsel and legal counsel would need to be out of general fund. The exact scope and the amount of project must be known fully before we take place, so we would need to get more quotes at this current time if that was something that we would look to do and desire. Once that is known, the process would be obtaining a loan. It would take about approximately 2 to 3 months to do so in that process. We have looked at the opportunity since some of the discussions at the community forum. Tom Cedarquist has looked into another window replacement, and there was a new recommendation of maybe looking at it a little bit different. We were looking at replacement of all the windows, where the major leaks that are taking place within those windows would be the crank windows, or the windows that are opening and closing, and those, I mean, they only open very little, which provides very little airflow, but those are the windows that are being deteriorated in that process. So rather than the $700,000 that are there, we could look at just replacing those within a process, and it would be approximately $400,000, so less than those dollars. If we were to look at the full-out overall windows, those have went up in this process and are closer to $900,000 plus now at this point. AC upstairs is still around that $300,000 to $350,000 mark in that. So the big thing is that the $25,000 for the legalities of the loan itself would need to be taken from general fund if we were to look at a loan in this process. So that would be a decision we need to look to do as far as the $25,000 out of a general fund. I do not recommend it at this current moment, just as we're finishing up. If we want to look at it as a budgetary step for next year in that process, it will take a couple years to gain the dollars that are needed in that to have the savings, which obviously is not what's always best for kids, right? We do want the upstairs cooler for a learning environment, and obviously the leaks also create other havocs within the classroom as well and can create future damage. One of my talking points within the extracurricular bonds proposal as well was that this would be another step within a three-part series or a set of sequence where we obviously have already passed the sinking fund, which would be on a 10-year rotation. We would then have a smaller bond proposal, such as an extracurriculars bond proposal, but a smaller bond then would be a 0 mil increase renewal down the road as well. And then in approximate years of 2030, 31, or around there, we would look to do a larger bond as those bonds that are currently out there would then be rolling off into a larger bond, would look at a change to our elementary school, and whether that is a full-out remodel of the school or whether it's a new construction of an elementary school or a remodel of the MAC and making that larger to a K-5 world. There's many of questions and things to look at, but obviously early school is the building that has the most repairs needed in that process. I also just want to point out that within a bond and going forward with a bond, those dollars can't be used for the repairs or fixing of anything. Those are things that we have to do out of general fund dollars or through something as the sinking fund. So, and like it, for instance, an extracurricular bond doesn't take dollars, you can't utilize those dollars to replace, to go and fix, windows or, unless it's a full-out building renovation in that process. So, in this discussion, at this time, my recommendation is not to say that it wouldn't be moving forward, possibly, but I guess I'd like to hear maybe some of your thoughts or comments around the sinking fund. Is it worth us to look at the budget and try to find some of those dollars to make these changes within the windows or the air conditioning units at the early school? $154,380. That is correct. Although $80,000, it has not been done, but it's earmarked. We're looking at univents, 4 univents. 4 univents, Stacy, where would that be?
Field furnaces and $80,000 for 4 univents.
So that would be 150 right there if those were things that could be spent, and then that would leave $4,380 left.
What was the first part of that, Stacy? I didn't catch it.
Furnaces out the football field, I understand, are failing. Tom is trying to decide what's the best route for that, whether it be replacement or repair.
I got the replacement and the repair, but what was it?
So the concession, the team rooms, those things have heat within that, and the furnaces are going. So the question would be, do you repair or do you look at replacement of those furnaces? That could be up to $70,000. Those are things that we had looked as far as a timeline. So that one, and then $80,000 for the univents. Where would those be located at? Do you know? Yeah. Okay. And I'm not sure as well. Those have not been purchased or done yet. That was an idea to put forth. Those could also be carried over if needed. We would then look to have the $300,000 within the 2022-23 school year, along with another for the 23-24, which one then we feel that we would have the dollars to do those projects in the 23-24.
Do the windows next year. Is that what you-
Possibly with the new pricings now, if we were to look at the new model, I'll be honest with you, we have to look more at that. That came from our forum. It is a possibility. Is that something that is going to be feasible and make sure? When I hear, hey, we could get the whole new window, but now we're just going to do a portion of the window, is the whole window going to go? So we have to inspect more at that point in time. But it is possible that, there would be enough to do the windows even next year with the $300,000 and $150,000 if we did not spend the $70,000 or the $80,000 in that process. That'd be $450,000. That would be close enough to do windows if we were looking at a crank option, which would be a portion of the windows, not the full windows. Thoughts?
I guess you need to look at it. What do you need more? Windows in your elementary school, it's used 185 days a year, or a heater in your locker, or your concession stand, whatever you want to call that building, it's only used a handful of times a year. So what's more important?
And with the new pricing of the idea of looking at the new crank windows, I would say definitely into the windows. The idea was that the $700,000 for windows would not be attained, so utilizing some of those dollars this year, because it would still be attainable in 2 years regardless if the dollars were used this year or not. Does that make sense? So the $150,000 could be used so that the windows, regardless, they wouldn't have been able to be attained through the $300,000 next year. It would have had to been the additional, the next year after that. We could do that with next year.
But you also take into consideration those, if you get those windows taken care of, then you should see some savings from.
This is correct.
Your heat loss in the winter.
Which thus would say that the expenditure of $25,000 for a loan might be considered as well in that process. Will it attain those dollars of $25,000? No, probably not. Especially if you're looking at that loan, you would also want to do the air conditioning unit and possibly even more dollars as well to do other projects if you are taking out that loan. But for instance, with the air conditioning, it would actually have an increased cost to that. So you're kind of offsetting your cost, and the savings that you get with the windows, you would actually put it back out with the additional running of the air conditioning.
Is there air conditioning in there now? Is it an upgrade, or is it just?
There is not, in the upstairs, there is zero air conditioning.
And it's hot.
And it is hot.
Well, of course it is when you start schooling lots.
Maybe if you wait till after Labor Day to start school, that wouldn't be quite as much of a
Problem
problem.
is it's hot in March and April.
With Tom, the furnace in the. At the
Unit
end,
S?
yeah. That's like if we have 5 home games, or there's 9 games regardless, because JV and varsity, but that's 9 games that it's used compared to how many school days that we have that, if we don't replace those windows soon, it's just gonna cause more and more damage throughout the school.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is that we will look to save the remaining dollars that have not been spent this year with the addition of the next year's sinking fund dollars, and look at the replacement of the windows rather than taking out a loan to purchase windows and air conditioning in a quicker fashion, whether that be in a couple. No. Correct.
And is this something we can start like July 1 to, as soon as it rolls over to the new year to get started?
I would,
Till next what?
3. So we'll complete getting all of our tax collections this year, the 150,000 by this June 30th. And then we've got to wait a whole another year to June 30th, 2023 before we get the remainder of the tax collections.
But then how do we purchase them in next year? Because you have to have them in hand before June.
You know, the tax collections through.
well, how did we do it this year then?
How did you what this year?
These dollars. Because we did like the boiler removal, so we spent those dollars.
But in the summer, you get half of it in July and August, is White River Township's the summer collection. Then we get the other half in the winter collection, Grand Clay Banks. And so all of your dollars are not in until June 30th. So we've got half of our money in so far from the sinking fund. We don't have our full revenue in yet this year.
When would the money come in from the special ed millage if it was passed?
I don't have that information.
Same December and summer. So Stacy, I guess a clarifying question then. So it says the total beginning balance plus revenue of the 290,791. Is that included the dollars? So that's this year, the 2021-22. Is that including this upcoming summer's collection of those dollars?
290,000. From July 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2022, we'll have received that 290,000.
Did we get a breakdown?
When we get the sinking fund money,
Yep. The summer, winter.
yeah, how, what it looks like over the course of the next year and a half.
But at this point, what you, I guess, the information that you need is that, are the windows the priority, right?
Correct. Are the windows the priority?
And I
Is
think
the
that's
air
what we're
conditioning
saying.
the
We
priority?
all agree that the windows are a priority.
And is the loan, an expenditure of $25,000 something that would like to move forward or not?
I think that's something that we might have to have more information about, those distribution of funds,
Okay.
to know.
The breakdown of how those dollars would work.
Yeah, to know if there's a
Timelines.
way to swing it.
Okay.
The preference obviously would be not to do that.
Right. Okay. And then I will bring that back up for the April board meeting. Okay.
Is that it with the sinking fund?
That is it with the sinking fund.
Item G is consideration to approve moving forward with the extracurricular bond proposal. Motion made by Tom. Support from Amanda. Discussion.
Okay. The decision here is whether or not we look at an extracurricular bond. And I'll be honest with you, we could actually change the name if we'd like to in that process, but the idea would be around the extracurricular work that takes place. Based upon the last meeting, you said to reach out. I have went through. We had a voluntary building meeting at the MAC, RRO, NBC, and the high school. Some buildings were a little more attended than others, but not a large turnout, but it was voluntary and their choice as well. I did have 2 community forums here that are visual for you as well. Catchmark did live stream that, but we have the recordings as well. I kind of went through, and really what it comes down to is the need for more space within the district. And the need for more space would be in our gymnasium space, indoor space, and then a barn addition as well that would provide us more space with the current barn being remodeled to provide more space for the district. Same here within the district. Not only would it provide extra practice space during the winter months, but it would then be a remodel of the old weight room area, or this old stage, if you will, remodel to provide more space here in the district as well. I did provide, and I want to be clear in these drawings as well. We had Tower Pinkster here within the forums. These are just mock-up drawings, and this is not anything that has cost the district, very similar to some of the CTE creation or ideas. The idea is just if we're going through that we would use the architects at Tower Pinkster. So this would be an idea of more space. They felt that, and after doing walkthroughs, that the idea of a new gym space or performance gym, this would be the performance gym type drawing, would be off of the northwest corner here of the high school with a corridor that would then work into the current gymnasium work. You can kind of see some drawings of proposed ideas. The dollars that would be generated in a 0 mil increase for this August would be, the bond amount would be $12.5 million. So that would be what is read or put onto the voting verbiage, which would actually proceed for us. The proceeds would be $12.282 million in that process. So that would be a 0 mil. For your knowledge, whether or not, if in our discussion, looking at the different votes of an August versus a November versus a May, November would produce a bond amount of $13.5 million, and the bond proceeds would be $13.270. The May election of 2023 would be $14,200,000. So $14,200,000 with the bond proceeds being $13,962,000. Some of you in conversation did want to also just have an understanding, not to say that that was the direction that may or may not wanted to be head, but to look at a 0.5 mil increase and a 1 mil increase in the same venue or thought. And a 1 mil increase for August would be 22 million versus the 0 mil increase of 12,500,000. That would be the bond amounts. A 0.5 obviously would then be in the middle of a $17,500,000.
So, in addition to extending it for the 2 years, add
A 0.5 mil would be 17,500,000. A 1 mil would be 22,150,000. So it would be an additional dollar. It would be an ask for a tax increase. November, same kind of thing. Go from 13 million up to 13,500,000 to 18,450,000 at the 0.5 mil, up to 22,900,000 at the 1 mil. At the May 23, 14,200,000 to 0.5 mil, 19,200,000 to 1 mil at $24,100 million. So obviously larger dollars as you wait or as you increase the mills. I had said previously, and due to the inflation costs through not only Tower Pinkster, our architect, but then through we had last week a construction manager interview, because the timelines, if we were to look to move forward here in August, the timelines would be quite quick. So we did have the facilities committee come in with Scott, Brent, and Tom, and they sat in an interview with Triangle Construction. Tomorrow there will be an interview with Windberg Construction here locally in town tomorrow to ask some questions to get an understanding that if we decide to move forward in something, that we could then get some more realistic numbers and a better idea. We've got rough numbers, and that could change even throughout this process, and that's one of the scary things around this bond as a whole. I think that the big overall arching thing for us as a district that I'm trying to present to move forward is the need for additional space. The space at the gym within an athletic facility, what that looks like. I mean, that can change within the dollar amounts or the scope that we need to work with. a barn as far as that, and then the additional things around auditorium updates here within the district that are going to cost the district a substantial amount, looking at some of our band and choir costs as we continue to progress them to move forward, ADA compliant dugouts. There's a number of different things as far as remodels at Memorial Field and press boxes, both at Memorial Field and the football field as well, around possible ideas of other press box creations, but I think that those would all come depending on the dollars of building those additional spaces first and then working their way. If the idea is to move forward, it would then be many committee meetings with parents and community members and staff and board members to kind of itemize what those areas are as far as importance, and then on a yes vote, it would then actually be diving into those and saying this is an actual creation of what that would look like. So, comments, questions?
You had a figure, some kind of an estimate for what the gym would cost?
So the original, originally with the architect, it was around $7 million. That was based upon a previous, or $7 million. That was off a gym previous within the last 2 years. As we started to dig deeper with construction managers, it's probably pushing more to $10 million now at this point in time, with the unknown of what it could do in the future as well. And that's some of the nervousness around $12.282 million bond proceeds that now you're getting a little tighter. I do think within the barn, the shelling of the barn and through some of the work that the food service and our CTE programming is doing, that could dramatically cut the price on some of the barn buildings. But I mean, you're looking at, on the upper end of the $10 million within a gym for sure. And it depends though, right? So that would be based upon the drawing that I have shown you there, which would be two full courts with a court that goes across. That would be a performance gym. Bleachers would come down with a track around the top that could be walked. It would have multiple lanes within that. Would have a weight room, fitness center in that area as well. It would have team rooms, officials rooms, concession stands, bathrooms, elevator. So it's of a, I wouldn't call it the top of the line, as obviously the gyms now are being even built with 3 courts and larger tracks, and so the square footage. But bottom line is, once you have a better understanding of what prices are, you can then work your, okay, this is where it is, so this is what we could do. And that could be anything to give you an estimate. Now granted, this was built 2 years ago though, as the Viking Athletic Complex was more in the $6 million range. But that was 2 years ago as well, so that would be more, but it might not be as much as a performance gym is concerned. The performance gym that was shown here is over 30,000 square feet, so maybe you look to shrink some of that size, which would give you a better price in that process as well, which would allow you to spend more on the other extracurriculars within that. And this would be it's a 25-year term, but it would take that the participation in the school bond loan fund from 2035 to 2037. And in all honesty, with talking about a future plan of looking at a future bond down the road, that will extend that date even further down the road as well. As a school district, we probably would never want that to elapse, as then future votings would need to be increases rather than renewals.
So the discussion for adding half a mil or a mil was because quite possibly the 12.
Just the 12, it puts things tight, and I don't think that it's not possibly enough, but yet I think it makes things tighter, and it doesn't allow for some of the things that if you are building something that you might want to have. So it's the question about wants and needs. The need of the district is additional space. We need additional space for our students and here within the district. A barn and an athletic gym is what is needed. Now, the wants versus the needs, and in between, and how you you do that, I mean, is where the dollars come into space, or into play. Let's see if there's anything else on my notes here that I have.
With this motion, how we have it, it's just whether we're moving forward, it's not for anything more specific at this point, right?
No, well, but here's the thing, it would be a quick process, right? So and the motion is to approve the district moving forward with an extracurricular bond, but I would like you to actually make an amendment, thank you for clarifying, of when we would like to move forward in that. Because within the August vote, we would have to do some things pretty quickly here. And let me get my notes here as far as my timelines are concerned. At the end of the month, we would need to meet with Treasury. In that meeting with Treasury, we would have our architects, Troon Law Firm, and that's where start of that process takes place, where there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that process.
Do you need to also know about if there's an additional mill or half mill?
That would be correct as well.
Okay.
So June 30, we would have a meeting with the Treasury in each board meeting hereafter, we would have to have approvals of that process. We would then go into the language aspect of it, of what it would actually look like on that process. But I wouldn't want to go without the approval of what mill increase or staying still and what month you would like to have the voting take place, if that's the desire at this meeting.
Can we hear from Facilities Committee
Yes.
what your recommendation is based upon your meeting and everything?
Well, the additional bond, or the additional mills wasn't brought up.
Okay,
This is the first I've heard of that, so.
okay.
What we were told is the price increase, and a lot of the price increase is the state of our world today. Within the last month, the price of metal has gone up 40%, which adds cost. A lot of the supplies come from overseas. All the metal, all the aluminum comes from the Soviet Union. All the metals come from the Soviet Union. So that's for the price increase. The other is the global market right now. You know, material is so far out. We're saying, even if you can get metal, we're looking at 10 months before we can get it for you. You know, and they can't order it until they have the money in place. So, you know, if the bond is passed, it's gonna take another 8 to 10 months for the architect to get the drawings done. And they can't order materials until, you know, the drawings are more specific and detailed, so they know what to order for. They can pre-order some stuff, but they can't pre-order all. So, you're looking at it, you know, in vast time. Feel free to jump in here any place, guys.
Yeah, I mean, the sooner the better, I think, if we're gonna go forward. You know, I don't think it's bad to not short-cheat ourselves a little bit with this as well. You don't wanna get in a spot where you don't have the money to do what you wanna do and have to make some serious trade-offs, you know, based on construction costs. There's a little risk management, I think, in that.
And I think some of these projects that need to be done, you know, some of the smaller things, you know, I think we need to just budget it in and bite the bullet, you know, the track needs resurfacing, well, it's 80,000, well, we resurface the gymnasium for it, but we don't do any bonds or loans or anything like that, we just budget it in. We buy school buses, there's 120,000. You know, we don't seek extra funds, we just budget it in. And I think some of these smaller projects, I think we should just budget in to take care of and to free up more, you know, revenue for the other forays or the, you know, other facility needs that need to be done.
Anything, Scott?
I'm comfortable that a 0 mill increase has a better chance of passing. And I think that the current plans here might have some alterations to it in order to create this space and the space of a barn. And I am a little nervous that the extra things that are on that list aren't going to be to the levels that we would like it to be. So I want to be, forthcoming with that when you're looking at, like as Tom said, a $80,000 track or the possibilities of $200,000 for the auditorium updates and the marine models that we have in the barn of $100,000 and additional dugouts that are ADA compliant and the press box remodels and the memorial field. Like it all adds up, right? And I don't want to say that we can do it because unfortunately, it's a time where I thought that it was feasible, number one, when we first thought that it was 7, but as the inflation took place off of that in the timeline, okay, I still thought it was doable. Now we have the war within Ukraine and Russia, and everything became even more volatile. They Yeah, and they did say that because right now it's this. They talked about there was something in Texas as far as distribution. There's always something that is going to be a cost up, but then you can also get cost savings in other areas based upon that timing as well. As far as if we're really looking to have more of the model that is seen here, as far as spacing or even more within that process and reach, all the other extracurriculars within a safe feeling of that, I would make the recommendation to look at a mil 0.5 or a 1 mil increase within that. But I think that drastically takes your chance of passing that to be less. I do think that there are plenty community supporters for that, and there are plenty of individuals that are looking to create yes committees and work towards that. But I don't, just under the culture and climate currently of our world, to be honest with you, I don't know in tax increases coming off of one that's already looking at a special ed millage. Now, if that doesn't pass, then maybe they'd be more apt to do that as a 0.5 or a 1 mil. So there's many variables. What I can tell you is I feel much more comfortable with the 0 mil increase passing. I do think that it will create the money to be tight, though. And no, I would look to meet all the needs on the list. And I wouldn't build a $12 million. I would look to build the price is going to dictate that, but the space of the barn and the gymnasium is what is needed. So, and whatever we need to do to build those 2 spaces.
So as we look to amend this motion, one thing maybe we could get clear is, do most people feel like August is the right time?
How much does that cost? Because then we pay for the whole election, right? We would be the only thing. Or is there?
No, there's, it's primary, isn't there?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So 7,000. There's with no one else at $7,000.
Yeah,
So
okay.
based upon that, it would go down. The least we see is around 1,500. So somewhere within the 1,500 to $7,000 range.
But you need to know all this by June, correct?
No.
I need to know tonight
Yeah.
to approve the district moving forward with an extracurricular bonds in what election for a 0 mil or an increase of some sort. That's what is needed tonight. So you're amending your motion to approve, to move forward with an extracurricular bond and an August vote at 0 mil.
Okay, so then we're going to vote on that.
Blair's got his. I'm fine, go ahead.
My mind, you keep talking about we need extra space. Trust me, I'm all about that stuff. I've been at it my entire life, and I'm looking at this. What is the quantitative measure of saying that this is the extra space that is needed?
I think what I heard from the forum was that we wanted to decrease the time into the night that teams are practicing, so have students done more at the 7 o'clock range than the 9 o'clock range.
I don't think that's, I think what Blair meant is this going to be adequate for our needs.
Oh,
Maybe. Well, what is the primary, I want to know what the primary reason just for athletic space.
Right. So,
Space is the means to get the space for the other programs, because we're able to revitalize, say, the current weight room to a different multi-purpose room, because it would be part of this performance gymnasium. So it's being able to create this space to open up the existing space that's being used for other extracurricular programs.
I see where you're going now. So it would be the programs that we have that are currently moving every single year, and to find room for them. So for instance, with our wrestling room that is in the middle school cafeteria, in the middle school hallways right now, that would give us space for them. It is our robotics that has been at the MAC and high school and early school. I don't know the early school for sure, but NBC, we have moved around from time to time. It is DECA providing them storage because they're in their classroom right now. One whole corner of the room is full of boxes in their printing presses. It is the cheerleaders that are currently here on the stage sometimes in the cafeteria here at the high school or in hallways as well. So that would be, I guess, the major factor is that they're constantly moving, they don't feel an ownership, and if you were to ask those parents, coaches, those associated with the programming, they would say that would deter individuals from wanting to be a part of that program. It would also provide additional opportunities for a district to have different events. When you look at some of the events that have been taking place, I've got some photos over recent things, but we've had middle school wrestling tournaments. There's My Way wrestling tournaments, which is becoming a big thing that we normally don't even have because they need the bigger gyms to do that. That would be, so the wrestling world would create. This weekend we had our middle school and high school. We had over 30 teams here for volleyball, which the bleachers were only pulled out this far. It created some frustration amongst the parents. Even though it was a system that worked out very well, it's an hour on and then you're out, it still created mass chaos within the seating. I think the other things within our current gymnasium, not that it doesn't work and an understanding of that, but our ceiling is too low to hold district events for the MHSAA in that currently under this point in time. Also, our seating, it works, but yet as the student section has continued to grow in some regards, or just the mannerism of how they cheer, it has created other spectator issues as far as wanting to sit and where our student section is. That is something that can be worked out, so I don't want to say it, but in general, if you notice, at least on these plans, it would have its own student section off to the side, which then would open up more seating for individuals in our current gym. And not that because there's many events that take place at a gymnasium, to say that we pack it all the time, we do not. But we do have, I would say, 3 to 4 per a season that take place as far as packing that gymnasium, and it would make it more comfortable in that. So I guess that would be my answer to that. As far as space is concerned, there is some relevance to we're currently right now, our practices, both in the fall or during the winter season, go till 9 o'clock every night. In our winter season, we feel that with the additional space, it would be able to go to 7. Now, that's not to say that there won't be things going on from 7 to 9, because it will. It'll be other sports, it'll be other activities. It could be White Lake Youth or different things taking place. So there are things, but our students within those winter sports activities would be done at an earlier time. The rental of the facilities, as I mentioned previously, it would would make an increase of revenue. I don't want to say that would be a large sum by any means. There would be certain events, but oftentimes they're brought on by programs, and it acts as fundraising opportunities for those programs, which then we just get the standard base rate. So we're not making large amounts as a district. It's more to the program, but it does offset some of the things that take place within programs that we as a district don't pay for.
I think the other thing too is another opportunity for students at the FFA barn to do food processing and see that whole from growing to processing, packaging, and distribution too.
Yeah, in the barn, obviously, you'd have your larger area that would be for more animal-based storage, those projects that are taking place through our FFA and ag programs. There would also be office-type areas to talk through them as classrooms. It creates an OSHA event that I don't know if we necessarily want to get into, call them classrooms, but it would be areas that would provide space for kids to do different projects and different things as far as their creations, almost a worker space, but then also food processing that would be connected to our food service program, and that's, obviously it would be OSHA certified and those kind of things, but off of that, it would be, basically through the farm to school grants that we have and some of those things, we're really looking for those local connections where we bring it in. It's a food processing that I do think will be continuing to move forward here within Western Michigan and creating the future workers of tomorrow in that process. And then it could also be connected to our, whether it be our DECA program or even through those ag leadership things as almost a school storefront as far as some of those food processing. So we can take those carrots or we can take the green beans and make those into, number one, something that we serve at school, but then we could also sell them right there almost as a connection to the farmer's market or on an everyday basis rather than when we just go to the farmer's market on Saturdays. Other questions, comments?
Well, and I believe that I heard this in the forum as well, that you have a figure for maintenance then, being able to take care of our open spaces, and we're comfortable with that in our budget?
Yes, currently, Tom's, it's based upon a square footage price and some of the things that are in there, but it would, I believe I stated it as, for all the different projects, looking at around was it $25,000, Stacy? $25,000 to $30,000, yep. It is stated in that form, though, that I wrote down. Any other questions, comments?
So was the motion amended to,
Are we good with that, August? Or do we want August with 0 mil? Are we all good with that? Or we want to go?
So that was your amendment.
Well, I want to make sure everybody's good with it.
I'm making a suggestion, so. If nothing to stipulate.
I think at this point, we probably better vote on that, and then, unless you have
Okay.
something different.
So that was Tom's motion. We would need a second of that motion that because it was changed.
Motion made by Tom, support by Brent. Any other discussion? So we're looking at August with a 0% increase.
0 mil increase.
0 mil increase. Okay, all those in favor? Yes. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item 9 is a motion to move into closed session with a roll call. Motion made by Tom, support by Scott.
Dr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow? Yes. Mrs. Dahl? Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Francis? Yes. Mr. Beischeisen? Mr. Rath?
All right. Students for signatures. If you need signatures, come on up front.
So I highlighted.
Yeah.
There's no motion needed to go into open session.
Okay.
You only need to do this if you guys decide to motion something. Otherwise, just adjournment. Who by and what time?